Hi, and welcome to another Aperture tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to be covering Aperture 3. I'll begin by going over the user interface, and then we'll discuss importing media, and then I'll cover comparing images, and then organizing your photos. Then we'll move on to the slide shows feature, and then I'll briefly discuss using an alternate editing app, and then I'll cover adjustments and brushes. And then I'll briefly talk about plugins. And then I'll go over some more advanced importing. And then talk about handling multiple libraries. And then discuss conserving system resources. And then lastly, we'll talk about backups. So let's begin by discussing Aperture 3's user interface. Let's start with the toolbar at the top. From the left, we see that we have the inspector, which basically just shows or hides the inspector sidebar. We have the import option, which allows us to import media from a connected camera or a media card that you have inserted into your Mac, or even digital files from your own hard drive. Then we have the option to create some new projects, folders, albums, books, etc. And then we have a name, which basically just allows you to assign a name to faces that Aperture 3 has detected in your photos. We have keywords, which is another form of sorting your photos within Aperture 3. Aperture has a variety of ways to sort your photos, and this is just one of them. You can create as many different keywords that you want, different categories. It's really quite intuitive and in-depth. Then we have some sharing options. We can share our photos via email or photo stream or Facebook or Flickr. And then we've got some different view modes. So currently I'm in the browser mode, which will just display photos in a grid. Then split view mode will show you your photo thumbnails at the bottom and show you the selected photo in the main window. And then viewer mode basically just shows you the selected photo that you have, and you can scroll through your photos using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Then faces, basically if you click on that, it'll just take you to the faces section of Aperture 3, and it'll show you all the different faces, the different people that Aperture has detected within your photos. And then places will display where you've been on a map based on the GPS information on your photos. So either you have a camera that records GPS location information, or you can assign it yourself afterwards once you've imported the photos. And once you've assigned your locations, you'll be able to see all the places you've been on this map. Lastly, we have the loop, which is basically like a magnifying glass that you can just use to zoom in and just do some more fine-tune editing. And you can focus on loop, focus on cursor. So wherever my cursor is, the loop will show me. And you can choose how much you want to zoom in. So you can go all the way up to 1600%. Let's test it on 800, and you see how it's really pixelated. So that's handy if you have really high resolution photos and you want to get in close and you just want to do some fine-tune editing. Okay, so that's the toolbar. Then we have our inspector on the left. And our inspector is pretty straightforward. We have 3 tabs. We have the first one, which allows you to navigate your entire library, and it's sorted into a variety of categories. And then beneath that, you can see all the projects and albums you've created. Then the second tab is the metadata information for the selected photo that you have. So you can edit the photo that you have selected, all the different metadata that you want. You can choose different categories that you want to edit. You can, let's change, for example, name and ratings. Now I can change the name, the version name, add a rating, GPS information, as I just mentioned earlier. You can add GPS information. You can edit all the metadata from here. And then we can assign some metadata presets. So you can set up a bunch of presets. Let's say you're a professional photographer, and on all your photos that you edit, that you send off to clients, you want to have certain metadata information added each time. You can make a preset for that and just apply it. You can also do batch changing. So there's really complete freedom to customize your metadata from within this. And then lastly, we have the adjustments tab, which is where you do all your editing of your photos. And we'll discuss this in video 3 of our tutorial. Excuse me, video 2 of our tutorial, when we start talking about editing photos. So that's the inspector. And then we have our viewer, which is basically this main viewing window. And in the viewer, we have a few options. We've got selection tool. We've got rotate to rotate your photos. You can lift metadata information. So basically you can lift metadata from one image and then apply it to other images. So there's lift and then stamp, which is to apply it to another image. Then select and straighten tool basically just allows you to correct the angle in case your camera was at a slight angle when you took the photo. Then we've got some cropping. We've got red eye, so we can fix red eye. And then we have some common brushes, different effects that we can apply from within the viewer. So I can go dodge, and then you see it automatically takes me to my adjustments tab in the inspector. And now on the photo, I can just paint in the effect that I want. Okay, again, but as I said, we'll discuss editing in the second video. So that's some of the options in the viewer. In the bottom right hand, we have zoom. So we can just zoom into our photo again. Another way of zooming in, aside from the loop. So we can just do a bit fine-tune editing. Let's say I just wanted to edit this wooden post. I could focus in on that. And you can choose the amount you want to zoom in. So I'll just disable that. Then we have metadata overlays. So basically just a quick way to access your metadata. So you can now see the metadata information within your viewer if you enable it. So I have show metadata. Now I'll switch to basic view and it hides the metadata. So I'll leave it on expanded view for now. Then we have show master, which basically will, if you've done a bunch of editing on your photo and then you want to go back and compare it to how it originally looked, you can just click show master. In this case, there's no change because I haven't made any adjustments. But if I do a quick adjustment on my photo and now I click show master, it shows me the original. So you can basically compare your original to your adjustments. And then there's the primary only button, which I'll explain in video 2 when we discuss editing our photos. And then there's quick preview mode, which I'll discuss in depth in video 3 of this tutorial. But basically what it allows you to do is to navigate through your photos quicker without accessing the raw image. So when Aperture tries to access a raw image, there's a lot of information that it has to open and display to you on your screen. So quick preview mode prevents it from accessing all that information so that it enables you to skip between your photos faster. And then we have full screen mode. So if I switch to full screen mode, you'll see that basically it's been customized for editing. So all the options we have available to us, you'll see are all editing tools. We have the rotate, lift, stamp. It's all the tools that we have in our main viewer in standard view mode. So if I switch back, it's all these tools that we have here. So full screen mode is just nice when you're doing editing. It allows you to maximize your screen use. just more pleasant. You're getting to see much more information of your photo while you're editing. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm probably not going to use full screen mode much, because I want to be able to discuss all the different options available within Aperture. So I'll just exit. And that's your user interface. Now when it comes to importing media, we just have this import option, and it's really quite good. You have a lot of options you can do before you import the files into Aperture. So you have a lot of control in terms of organizing your photos, so where Aperture will store them, how it will name them, how it will arrange them. You can even add ratings, metadata information, which helps a lot, especially when you're working with a lot of photos. It's good practice to have a good import routine. So in my case, I just have some photos on my desktop. So I'm going to browse using the browser window here to the photos on my desktop. So I have a folder called Aperture Test. And then in the main window, I can see the thumbnails. So I'll just import all of them. Now on the right, we have our import settings. And you see there's a lot of options you can view. You can view file information. You can rename files. You can add a time zone. You can add metadata presets. So there's a lot of control that you get when you import your photos. There's also an option to back up your photos. So when it imports them, it'll import to your Aperture library and simultaneously back up to another location that you choose. So there's a lot of control. In my case, I'm just going to do a basic import. So the destination will be a new project, not an existing one. Well, in fact, I'm going to add it to my existing one because I've already imported one image. I'm going to say do not import duplicates because one's already been imported, this first one. When I tick this, you'll see it disappears because it's already been imported. And then I want to store my files in the Aperture library. Now I'll discuss later about organizing your files, where to store them, and the benefits of the different options you have available. But for now, you just need to know that this is where you'll choose that. And you can also change your mind later. If you've chosen to store them in the Aperture library, later on you can always move them out of the Aperture library. So it's just good that you know where this option is. So I'll store it in the Aperture library, and then I'll just say import checked. And my 10 items have been imported, so I'll click OK. So I'll go back to browser mode, and now you see that the photos in grid view. So now that I've imported a few more images into my Aperture 3 library, there's just one more thing I'd like to show you that you can do within the viewer. If you select multiple images, or in fact, let's say you're working with many images and you want to compare one image to another, you can select one image and come up to your view menu and go to main viewer and select compare. Or you can memorize these keyboard shortcuts, which are quite handy. So if I click compare, now it shows me the next photo, and I can browse with my keyboard in my library, and I can see two photos side by side. Now usually you're not going to compare completely random photos as I have here, but if you have 2 or 3 photos from the same photo shoot that are similar and you want to choose the best one, you can use this to compare the two together and decide which one you prefer. So I can also hide my inspector to get more screen space. I can continue navigating with my keyboard, and I can compare the photos together. And then to come out of that, I can just go back to main viewer and choose show multiple again. And now it'll just show me whatever I have selected.